Good evening. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that BC teachers have ratified the agreement in committee that was reached on September 16th. A total of 31,741 of our members cast ballots. In all, 27,275 members, or 86%, voted yes. With the ratification of the new collective agreement, the strike and lockout are now over. Teachers and students will be back in school on Monday. To our members, our teachers, proud members of the BCTF, thank you. This was a very tough round of negotiations and a difficult time for many of us on strike. But together, we successfully pushed back against concessions, and we have merged as a stronger and more engaged union. Your strength on the picket lines and your passion for our profession helped us make the gains this week that were not possible at any other point over the last 3 months. You have inspired me day to day for the last 18 months. Thank you for standing strong and doing what you believe and know is right. Through your hard work, British Columbians fully understand the real issue facing our students and our public education system. People understand what class composition is and how it relates to class size and the lack of specialist teachers. And now, British Columbians are not okay with the status quo. We will keep building on the momentum of the last several months to keep advocating for more support for our students. We all know that this deal isn't perfect, but it does provide gains for teachers, it protects our charter rights, and increases support for our students. There will be more classroom and specialist teachers in schools to help our students. Our teachers teaching on call will get fair pay for a day's work, and all our members will get a salary increase. Finally, thank you to all the thousands of parents, students, concerned citizens, and our sisters and brothers in the labor movement here in British Columbia and across Canada who stood with us and supported us. It's greatly appreciated. We will continue to work together to make BC's education system better. Thank you.
You mentioned this deal isn't perfect. What kind of response are you getting from your members? We're hearing that many of them kind of held their noses as they were planning to vote yes for this.
Well, you know, I think the members have spoken, and we had 27,275 who voted yes. That was a strong vote of support for this collective agreement, even though we know that we didn't get everything that we need in terms of our students and our members. But as we move forward and we continue our advocacy, our engagement will continue.
Mr. Eicher, when will school start?
Schools will be open on Monday.
In all districts across BC?
I think in most districts across BC. You'll have to check with the school districts on that.
How are you proposing that the teachers will make up all the lost time?
Teachers will be back at work on Monday, and school will begin on Monday, and we'll go forward to the end of the regular year.
So will there be any changes?
Yeah, no time will be made up.
Sorry, did you say what percentage of teachers voted?
Well, 86% of our members who voted yes. And so we had 31,741 teachers who cast ballots. That's,
how many?
You know, overall, I think we always say we have around 41,000 members. So our turnout here was huge, and this vote actually had more people voting than in our last 4 ratification votes.
That's still only 3/4 of your members, though. Is that a disappointing participation rate for you?
You know, actually, this is a very high participation rate, and I think that if we had this kind of participation rate in our elections, provincially and federally, I think people would really be pleased, and there'd be a lot more engagement happening, and this shows the engagement of our members.
Your same members are engaged, but we've heard from so many of them that they have voted with heavy hearts. We have heard from your own staff, they said that this is not enough. So what do you propose to do next, and how are you going to rebuild the trust amongst your members? Actually,
We have the trust of our members. And what this vote shows, and what the strong stand that our members showed, is their belief in what we were standing for on strike, the fact that they were losing pay, the fact that they weren't getting any strike pay, and we stood strong together. And our members are more engaged than ever. And we appreciate the voice that they've given us in terms of their concerns, their suggestions, their strengths. And that shows the strength of our union in terms of the involvement and the ability of our members to be able to speak directly with each other, as well as within the leadership of their own locals and the leadership of the BCTF. I was on the phone directly with members today, talking to them.
Teachers who crossed the picket line during the strike, will they be disciplined in any way?
We have processes in place that deal with issues in terms of, those kinds of issues. So we have a process in place, and whether there's any complaints, they will go to the process that we have in place, and they'll be dealt with there.
Is it possible that they won't be entitled to the payout from the retroactive grievance fund?
That hasn't been determined at this particular time yet.
That's something that you're looking at?
It's something that may be considered.
Mr. Riker, the fact that teachers haven't been paid in weeks, do you think that was a big reason for them to vote for this deal?
I think we need to celebrate the fact that our members ratified this collective agreement. And members ratify collective agreements for many reasons over the years. And I think what's important here is that our members will be going back to work doing what they love doing the most, and that is teaching. And each member looked at what this agreement was about, whether there was more to be had at some other point of time, looked at the circumstances as well too. And they voted yes. They could have been voting no. It was up to our members, and our members have spoken.
Is class size and composition still an issue?
Well, class size and class composition is always an issue. We know what the agreement we have is. It's being dealt with in the courts, and the court process will wind its way through, and we will deal with the restoration of those limits at that point in time. But we know the importance of smaller class sizes for our kids, and having more specialist teachers and more supports working with our students in the classroom, as well as one-on-one or in small group instruction. That is critical, and we will continue to advocate to have those conditions improve, and we will continue to advocate to ensure that our system is properly funded like other provinces across this country.
You repeatedly talked about not wanting to end up with the status quo, and if you look at the education fund, for example, the $75 million and so forth, 80 million, it looks an awful lot like that old fund. So is this the status quo?
Actually, it's not the status quo, because what this ensures is this fund will be spent on teachers working with our students in classrooms, whether it's more classroom teachers, so we can see some smaller class sizes, or whether it's more specialist teachers. So that is huge in terms of what will come forward. And the process to determine how the money is allocated in school districts will be a much better process in terms of involving our members and our unions in making those decisions. And so that's not status quo. It's a huge improvement.
Are you happy with this deal?
I'm happy with this deal. We recommended it. Our bargaining team recommended it to the executive, and the executive recommended it to our members, and now our members have spoken.
Do tonight's numbers suggest that there will be a better relationship between teachers and government going forward? What do you make of this particular ratio?
Well, I think what in terms of the stand that we've taken, And now that we have this agreement and that our members are engaged, and we will continue our advocacy, because that's part of who we are as a union of professionals, trade unionists as well, and a social justice union. And we will always advocate for better conditions for our students in their learning, as well as for our teachers. And we'll always be advocating for more support and more funding into our system. And that will continue as we go forward. We've got trustee elections coming up in November, and that's an important part of the governance. And we'll be looking to have our members engaged in that dialogue with trustees or prospective trustees in terms of how they're going to be supporting public education in the future, and how they're going to be supporting the call to continually put more dollars back into the system.
Mr. Eicher, so can you clarify, no missed time will be made up?
Our understanding is that a no missed time will be made up. I think what we need to concentrate on is that schools will be opening on Monday, and teachers and students will be back in the classroom.
Is it possible school days could be extended? I mean, the Ministry of Education said that time was going to be made up, so is there a discrepancy there?
No, actually, the Ministry of Education has determined that the current calendar will continue. Yes. That's the information that was given from the ministry to the superintendents.
What will happen with all the funding that you receive from the unions?
Well, that's the decision of the union, and our executive will make the decision exactly on how that funding will be dispersed to our members.
So you won't be returning that at this point? I mean, I'm also curious about how you'll be funding the upcoming court case, because again, we do that you went into the strike with very little in the strike fund. So what's left, and will any of that money, for example, be used to? The
money that was negotiated in this collective agreement, the $105 million, that's going to members. Absolutely. That's why it was negotiated, and that's where it's going to.
The government also saved a whole lot of money before and after. Did that go into this contract?
Well, I'm hoping that the money government saved actually comes back to our schools and back into our system, because we know that our system is currently underfunded to the tune of $1,000 less per student than the Canadian average. And I know you know that number, and it's an important number. And what we need all to be doing is advocating to have more dollars. And the money that was saved in the strike, that should go back into our schools to address the learning needs.
To you on what will happen with that money? Right?
No, there's no guarantees to us.
This has been a long strike, and a lot of members say that they're tired, they're exhausted. Should parents be worried that extracurricular sports, field trips might just not recover this year?
Well, those are all voluntary activities, and our members will make the decisions for themselves in terms of their own work-life balance, which is important to keep in mind in terms of their own health of their families, and the important work that we do in the classroom teaching.
How does this deal compare to other provinces, and how important is this to the BCTF?
So, sorry, I didn't get the
How does this
question.
deal compare to other provinces and the teachers' wages there?
Well, we know that teachers in other provinces have higher salaries that we do. That was one thing we tried to address, and we weren't successful in addressing that issue, and it's still an issue. And part of this collective agreement is that we have a committee that will be struck, I think, within a year's time, to look at the issue of wage comparisons with teachers across Canada, as well as with other occupations across Canada and some other things. So that's an issue we're going to be looking at and addressing during the term of the collective agreement.
Mr. Eicher, you said schools start more on Monday, but other districts it might depend. So what's your advice to parents? Like, should they be checking the website? How do they know for sure whether school starts on Monday?
I think that most school districts are having schools starting on Monday. It's up to the schools district to decide whether students are attending for part of the day or the whole day. And I'm sure school districts will do what they need to do to communicate with parents about what's happening in their areas for Monday. And I'm sure that information will be probably going out tomorrow after this ratification vote.
There's no blanket statement you can tell us tonight that all districts will be back in school on Monday.
Well, that's not our decision. Yeah.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thanks everybody.